welcome to day 26 of our January challenge and our 5th day of working on this Good Boys Lunch. We're doing it on a lap harp for those that want to try and get more familiar with the lap harp, or that, only play a lap harp. I think the great thing is to be aware of how wonderful all the different versions of harps are and how a harp is a harp. So I think it can be very easy to get caught in the trap of it's got too few strings, I just can't possibly play it, because you look at music that you normally might play on a 34-string Klarzak or on a pedal harp, and it has notes this harp doesn't have. But if you can really relish it for itself, and the way that I learned to do that was by playing music on it just for it. And not necessarily music I've bought in books, although there are some great books out there, but making my own arrangements and my own versions of pieces and my own improvisations and just sort of having fun with it. And like I've mentioned, getting to grips with all these different inversions of chords so that you're not stuck worrying about the lack of bass, because you can fill it in from here and it works. So without further ado, we're getting into our E minor section. This is the relative minor. I'm bringing a lot of theory in for you today. It's, so far we've been in G major, and it's all been very jolly and very cheery. A nice way of just introducing a variation to your music while still doing similar things is to then take it to what we call the relative minor. The relative minor, starting on G and calling that number 1, if we go down 3, 1, 2, 3, we get the other side of your, in my case now, a purple string, it might be your blue string or your black string, and it's an E minor. Okay, it uses all the same notes as happens in G major. I like to think of relative minors as being like a younger sibling, and it's got the same sort of parentage. So if you looked at the key signature, you'd see it had the same makeup, but it's an individual, and so it has its own little quirk. So E minor might shove in a D sharp. I'm not actually going to use that in the piece because it's not necessary, but to show that it's an individual, I'm not like my big sibling. And they might be a bit fed up because they have to go to bed earlier because they're younger. So they're a bit more miserable. It's not true to life, it's just an example. Okay, E minor. So we're actually going to do this same quite repetitive pattern that we've been doing. We've been going, yeah, so the same triad shape, and we do it 3 times. And sometimes it has that little rundown. And a little minor version of that 3 blind mice, G, F, E at the end. Now, we're very low down on this size of harp, so I can't do necessarily full 3 chord notes or 3 note chords in that bass there. Because this E, an E minor chord would be like, well, it's like I'm on now, a triad here, E, G, B. I haven't got a bass E, but I can do my G and my B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put fingers 3 and 2 on those notes, with nice shape, of course, as if my thumb were playing that note, even though it's happening in the top hand. Because at this point, I'm going to play, now I can either play all 3, so I'm adding the E in the bass now, or I could just add the top 2 notes. I think that's nicer rather than adding another G in the bass. So what my left hand is doing is B and G in the bass at first, with my thumb up as though it's ready to go on. I play the 2 and the 3, the chord, nice and neatly together. Then I play the B and the E, and then I'm just going to move that down 1 and do the A and the D. And that's my repeated pattern. Do it a 3rd time. Okay, so if I fit that underneath the top hand, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now at that point, My 3 blind mice is sitting on the G, F, E. I'm going to do the 3 and 2 again on that low B and G. I'm going to do the A and the D with the F sharp. And back to the 3 and the 2 on the bass with my 3rd finger on my other hand on the E. Okay, so what I'm playing there is, and what I'm doing between these chords is I'm moving between an E minor chord and a D major chord. Just making use of what my harp has. Okay, that makes sense? I hope so. So the right hand is doing this shape that you've been used to doing up in the G section and all over. So that should feel very familiar, and it's just the limitations of being 2 fingers now with your chords in the left, even though I might be using fingers 2 and 3 in some places, my thumb's not on. Okay, and still, even though it's a smaller harp, still being nicely over those notes with that hand so that I could still pull those fingers all the way into my hand. Okay, I'll see you over in the play along. Well done.